Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Essential Therapies podcast with Dr. Cindy. In today's episode, Mary shares her story of overcoming back and leg pain that kept her from her passion of slalom skiing for the last couple summers. Even as a physical therapist with access to multiple traditional treatments, she had found that nothing had worked until she discovered myofascial release. Now, some 15 years later, she's still skiing and has avoided invasive treatments. So today she discusses how she learned to trust her intuition and ability to engage in effective self-treatment. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you for joining the Essential Therapies podcast. Dr. Cindy Hodgson here. I'm a physical therapist and exercise physiologist, and this podcast is dedicated to all kinds of essential therapies, but especially myofascial release, the John Barnes approach. And I'm super excited today because I have an amazing patient and now friend and used to be employer here with me to do this podcast and share her story. So this is Mary. She was a rehab director back, I think we decided it was 15 years.
Yeah, it's been 15 years.
It's been 15 years ago when I first met Mary, and she was interviewing me, which is kind of a fun story. I had moved back to this area and I had little toddlers, and I decided I wanted to work in acute care, just acute care. You know, I love acute care.
Right.
It's so great, you know, and I decided that's what I wanted. I have this big, long resume and I come to see you, and we ended up having like a 2-hour conversation.
We did. We did.
And it was so fun. And during that interview, I saw you, we had lots to talk about. So it was a long time. It didn't really hit me, but I saw you getting up and down a few times, and we had lots to talk about and share. And prior to that, I had my first clinic here in Toledo, Ohio.
Right.
Ended up specializing in myofascial release. I didn't open it that way initially, but that's what happened within the first 2 months of opening it. It seemed like everybody that walked in that door needed MFR, right? As you realize,
that's what happens.
So then here I am seeing you do this. Well, then you didn't give me the job right then, but I felt good about it. And,
right.
And several hours later, that evening, it was like 8:00 at night, I think, and I get a phone call from you.
Yes, you did.
And she says, "Cindy, this is Mary. This might be totally unprofessional, but I need to talk to you about what's going on with me." I'm like, "What?"
Exactly.
So, do you remember that phone call?
I do.
Yeah, I will let
do.
you share a little bit about that, if you remember about that, and what
I do.
what you were thinking at that point.
I'll take you back for just a second. So a year prior to us meeting, a little longer than a year prior to us meeting, I had been training for a race. I have always been really active, and I had an injury to what I thought was my leg. And here I am, a physical therapist, and I didn't really follow the normal pathways of getting an evaluation.
Of course not.
I saw a sports medicine doctor that worked out of our clinic, and I thought I had a shin splint. And he put me in one of those walking boots, and I was literally in that for over a period of 3 months on and off. And so that led me into this problem that ended up being my back, and silly me not recognizing that that's what it was to start with, and in a hurry to get it fixed and move on with my life. So in comes Cindy. In you come for an interview, and I had, during that journey of a year and a little over a year, was seeking out every possible avenue of what was happening while I was getting worse and worse and worse. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw you that day, I was really at a wit's end. And when we started talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is something that I've been searching for, because literally I was tapping every avenue I could think of in
You had
therapy.
The resources, being
right.
The
I did.
of
I had all the resources, but I was always looking for something that, analytically in my mind was going, there's something wrong. I can't quite figure out what it is. The traditional methods really weren't getting to the root of the problem. Maybe everything was helping a little bit.
Now, what were some things that you had, like any testing or treatments?
Oh, I ended up with an MRI on my leg. Well, determining that really wasn't the cause. It was coming from my back. And so you can have back pain. People need to know you can have problems with your back and not have any pain in your back at all.
Find the symptom, look elsewhere for the
exactly,
cause, right?
Exactly.
My favorite tagline.
So I've had an MRI, I saw a chiropractor, I did massage therapy, I went through traditional therapies, exercise, every possible thing that I could think of. Finally spoke with an orthopedic physician. He was the one who said, I really think this is coming from your back. And of course I was like, oh my gosh, how stupid. I'm a P. Why didn't I know this? So, but in the meantime, I was beginning to move less and less and developing more and more restrictions, myofascial restrictions. And I knew of myofascial treatment, but I guess I had never experienced it
in this way.
In this way, exactly. So when you came in that day and we had this conversation, I was like, I think this might be something I need to pursue. And literally, I think I was on the phone begging you. Literally, I was like, you need to see me. You do. So.
Which of course I had no place to see you.
Exactly.
So we figured that out. And just listening to your story, I knew that there was a myofascial component, right? And whenever there's testing and treatment and they don't see something that's like kind of like obviously there, then that's, I'm always saying, I mean, I'm not sure in my history of doing this all these years, MFR hasn't helped someone who has had that scenario, right? You've tried all these things. It's just something that's ignored. And I remember you talking about this pain you would have. Remember the thigh pain?
Yes.
They couldn't figure this out because you have it on both sides.
Right.
And you knew it was coming from your back. Nothing was showing up. I mean, you could
my
kind
back.
of see
Well,
stuff,
eventually
some
my back
stenosis,
started bothering me, but I don't know if it was just the suggestion that it was my back.
Right.
I don't know.
Like there's that whole mindset thing, right? But your complaint was about your thighs. And so I'm thinking as I'm driving over, and we had to do this, I had these little kids, we had just moved back here, so life was craziness, and I think we had to do it after my kids went to bed. It was super late.
It was late.
So I'm like, getting out of the house. And it's dark, and I'm thinking, as I'm driving there, I'm thinking, I can't wait to feel what this is about.
Right.
And when I felt your body, when I felt your thighs in particular,
right.
I had to watch my reaction because it was like touching this wall.
I know. I remember you saying, I've never felt this before. And it was literally like cement. And I mean, likely I was really utilizing my legs to help whatever else was going on.
Let me just interject that she is definitely an active lady. I mean, you were running and doing all the things, but her love was slalom skiing.
Exactly.
Right? Yep. So in Michigan and these beautiful lakes that we have up here, and you hadn't been able to do that for 2 summers. And it was, I could feel your heartbreak from that.
Yep.
And that was, I resonated with that because many years ago I couldn't run anymore, and that was
I remember having that conversation.
Yeah, that was my skiing thing, right? I mean, and I had to learn how to be okay without doing that, which I didn't want you to have to do. And I just could see you still skiing again someday, and so that was kind of a big thing. But this was September-ish when I treated you. So you had gone 2 summers with no skiing, and a lot of pain, and things were getting worse. And it was kind of changing because then this whole thigh thing came on, and it was like morphing into different stuff.
It was kind of spreading out throughout my body, and literally my body was forgetting how to move normally.
Yes.
I mean, I remember even one of the first exercises you had me do was laying on the floor and just stretching my arms straight up over my head and my leg, just doing this lengthening stretch and going, wow, why haven't I done that? I mean, I'm a PT. Why haven't I done that in the past?
We don't teach it that way.
Exactly.
So feeling that biotensegrity through the body, and we're so ingrained with this is a muscle, this is a joint, bones, whatever, and instead of this whole integrated network of, it's hard to even go into because there's so much, right? But so then you started getting treatment. What do you remember what that felt like for you? And I believe we saw each other a couple, every other week, pretty much, a couple hours at a time, and through the winter. And
I just remember I was I became afraid to move, and I became really afraid of the pain. And I remember, having conversations with you in between the treatment times, and, you're kind of talking me off a ledge, basically,
Right.
and really talking about softening and paying attention internally to the tissues in the body.
Connecting
Connecting,
with yourself.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that often happens with people. They don't connect. We want to get it fixed. We want it taken care of. But the connection with your body is really, really important to start that journey.
Well, and the fear, like I really sense that in you. And here's the problem with someone who's educated, especially in the medical field, right? Is that what this could mean, what this could happen, and the like in the traditional realm, what would be next? Well, it's to go talk to the back surgeon, right? Which you didn't want to even think about that. And so there's this whole mindset game that happens. And
the thing about it is it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times what will happen is it doesn't make sense, but you just keep pursuing down the paths that you know. And when we had that first discussion, I was like, okay, I need to pursue this because this is something that makes sense to the whole picture.
It does, doesn't it?
So it really does. So, we've now been working together. I've been doing myofascial work for 15 years.
Yes.
And I'm skiing today.
Yeah. So let's go back.
Yeah.
So I saw you in September. We worked through the winter.
Right.
There was a lot of talking you off the cliff, like you said.
Yes.
And teaching you self-treatment and explaining to you Channel 3 and Channel 5. Remember that? You were very Channel 5. Like you were,
and I still am.
Yeah. That's just how you're wired.
Yep.
And not only that, you were a director of rehab for a big place. So you had to be, you weren't treating patients. You were living in this left brain Channel 5 space instead of, we think of Channel 3 as being connected in the present moment and being in your body. And that was a struggle for you, And so as soon as you'd have pain, you'd go to this, and all of the thinking of what could be going on. And then we'd have the phone conversation. I'm like, wait, have you tried this? Like, to first of all, calm down, like feel in your body, and to bring you back to that space. And then it was, I think it was really more in the summer of the following year that you were kind of doing this yourself. But the cool thing was, I'll never forget the phone call that I got from you at the end of May, and you're like, Cindy, I went skiing. I know that was the coolest. So do you remember that?
I do. Yeah. I do. It was great because really I thought I would never be doing that activity again. And I had tried a couple of times during the period where it was really bothering me, and I left in a lot more pain. I was like, I don't think this is something I'm going to be able to do. And after all the work that we did and just understanding the myofascial system a little more, tapping into the internal parts and not trying to figure out analytically what is happening, I think that made a big difference.
Yeah. And I remember talking you through some of those early days of skiing too. It's like you started slow, your body was moving differently, your pain was in different places, and then something different would pop up, and that's what would be scary for you. Is like, now I'm feeling, when you weren't ever feeling it in your back before, then you started feeling things in like your thoracic spine, or like, what is this? Like, what did I do? It's like, it's okay, we can work through it, and we did, and you ended up, I think it was the year after that you had some really good experiences with skiing again.
Yeah, I did. It probably took a couple of years to get to a place where I was really skiing and feeling comfortable with that. So
I'm trying to remember. I don't think it was very long, maybe a few sessions. I got hired to do acute care in the hospital.
Oh, that's right.
Finally hired me. And I wasn't doing that very long, and I was working with you, and you're like, I got to get you down to the outpatient clinic. So I was like, it wasn't very long that I wasn't doing myofascial release. So you do what you can in acute care, but there are basic things you have to get through. And then, so that was pretty quickly moved me into the different arena there, which was great. So moving forward then, do you recall any type of, it feels like we were pretty consistent with treatment for a
Right.
while. And then, as this work goes, we empower you to start treating yourself. And then I'll never forget also the call where you're like, I just have to tell you, the other day I was going to call you and I talked myself off the cliff and I did this, and this, and I was better and I'm okay.
Right. Right.
So that's what your life has been like, pretty much off and on.
Right. And I guess you would say, and I think you say this today to patients and you said it to me, but we can fix this. We can take care of this.
Mm-hmm.
And you just had a different way of looking at how to fix it and take care of it. And to me, that is really looking internally. Your body has an amazing potential to heal itself.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention to it. And
Mm-hmm.
we live in a world where we want quick fixes. We
Mm-hmm.
want, go to the doctor, do this, do that. You're taking medication. We have to pay closer attention to what's
Mm-hmm.
happening internally and give your body a chance to heal itself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of the work that you do.
Exactly. And when you were saying fix it, like, I don't think of myself as fixing anything. Like, what we
Well,
do
you
is
don't
we
say-
set,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
We set the environment. We
Exactly.
give the body what it needs so that it can
heal exactly
itself. And
that's really what I
changes.
meant with fixing it. I mean, your words
right.
fix it. And really, I always would tell patients when I was treating them years ago, we're just creating the environment.
Right.
Your
and this
body
is a different way of creating the environment.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about some therapeutic pain? We talk about this
Right.
sometimes.
Right.
And so we have, the work itself is extremely gentle.
It is gentle.
But sometimes you might have soreness later.
Right.
And
we had a discussion about this and what you called healing crisis. And that sounds like a horrible way of saying it, but it is really just your body responding to the work and taking that energy and the release and allowing it to work in your body to make you feel better.
And it
I
was
guess
scary.
this-
It was
it-
scary
it
a
is
little bit
scary,
for you.
right.
But do you remember how, that was again more of me saying it'll be okay.
It'll be okay.
You got to feel through
Right.
this. And so
Right.
as we get to that feeling through this, and as we're getting close to closing this up, because I think we're going to make this a two-parter here,
That's okay.
is that there was a lot of emotion that came up over the earliest, throughout all of your treatment, really. But in the beginning, I mean, there was emotion from not being able to do what you loved and the fear of not being able to have your life back. And what did this mean? And all of those things, right?
Right.
So if there's any little tidbit you want to let them know about, and what we will bring up more later, but this whole piece of emotion and your awareness that, wow, this is actually in the body.
I think it just
took a while.
created, it really took a while. And I would say it's still, I'm still
Yeah.
working on that.
We always are,
We
right?
are.
I mean,
And-
we're emotional beings. It's like fluid. It moves, it changes, it comes and goes.
My tidbit of information right now would be healing is a journey. I mean, it's not a destination,
Mm-hmm.
and we're constantly changing, and it's, and it's a physical, external, it can be emotional. And I think for it to happen, you have to allow many avenues.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a way to
Access.
it's a way to access.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to make sure that we're including, besides the traditional medicine, which there's a place for it,
Absolutely.
but I think that you have to really look beyond that
Mm-hmm.
for healing. I
Mhm.
think there's many things out there, and this is one that is, it's great, really.
One of the essential therapies.
One of the essential therapies, exactly.
But I have to add this in closing. Do you recall one of the first times you had some myofascial unwinding and you laughed and laughed and laughed?
Yes.
So speaking of emotion being in the body, it's not always, people have this tendency to think that it's always sadness or pain
Right.
or whatever, trauma. But sometimes laughter
There
is in
is.
there.
Oh,
And
I
it's
know.
like, I just got chills thinking
That's
about
why
it because it was so
I
fun
know.
to feel that joy come out of you. And
Right.
it's almost like something was holding back that joy.
Yep.
And to be able to let that laughter flow.
Yeah,
is
I
very,
will never
very good.
forget that.
Yeah.
The first time, but that is still a way that I release, and
Yeah,
it's good.
it's
Laughter's
great.
good.
Yeah, laughter's good. So that and so many more things about emotion
Right.
in the fascia. But thank you so much for
Absolutely.
giving your story. It's one of my favorites, as it reminds me of coming back to this area in the Midwest and from living in California for a few years and
Right.
starting working in the hospital again, and then just. I think your story just really ignited my fire to do what I'm doing now. It really did.
That's
So,
good. I want you to keep going
Yeah.
because people need this work.
People
Cindy.
need this work. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for
Absolutely.
joining. And please share with someone who might benefit from this. Subscribe to our channel. And we will see you on the next one. For sure.
All right.
Okay. Part 2.